Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to take a look at Rise and Fall. This is a Kickstarter from Ludically and Christoph Bollinger. He's known for some of the famous ones that I've bought. Pretty much most of his games I've bought. Dungeon Twister, Earth Reborn, that Dark Planet. Yeah, there's a lot that I've bought. So this is his brand new entry, something fresh and original. Yeah. Let's just get into it and I'll show you what it is. Okay, let's take a look at what comes inside Rise and Fall. You get this wonderful outside cover, very ornate. You get a score or a tracker. This is going to track the game flow and when the game ends and certain things and declining empires, etc. A couple of sheets that help give you some cheat sheet information. Every player is going to get some of these fantastic and well-defined tokens, which they're going to be placing on the board. You got your cities, you got your temples, your ships, your these merchants, nomads, and mountaineers. Those are the base level tokens that come with the game that each player is going to receive. Also have a manual. The manual is pizza box size, but very full of detailed information. A very specific set of setup steps, how the game flows, and then a description of the basic characters or basic units, after which there's the variants. There's several different layers of variants that add to the game's complexity. As you learn the game, you'll be able to apply those. Some tuck boxes, not tuck boxes, but some boxes that you can create that actually wasn't sure how sturdy they'd be, but they're actually holding their own and being really sturdy. The big thing is this box, which I think I normally throw every insert away. 90% of the games I get, I throw the insert away because I have a certain way I organize. I'm actually not going to throw this one away because I think it holds well. I think it's very sturdy. I think it holds all the pieces and components well. It's a little bit packed, but in general it holds well. And so I'm going to keep it, and I think it's going to work out. Scorecard for the end of the game, because the scoring is pretty elaborate. Also, you're going to get these tiles, and this is the star of the show. The tiles are meant to be placed, and I'm going to show you this, in such a fashion as to create a really nice map depth. And you can see that these tiles lay on there, and it lays in a really wonderful pattern. You've got your base level blue tiles, and then you lay your plains tiles, then you're going to play forest tiles on top, then mountain tiles, and then glacial tiles. And it's created a really nice vibe, but that's more of a review than anything. You get really shiny, I swear, if these are in the headlights, it would blind deer with these nice shiny tokens. Yeah, love them. The resources, there's not a bunch of resources. There's 2 types, and they're limited in supply, but there you go. Every player is going to get cards, and these cards basically tell you everything you need to know without having to refer to the manual. Once you understand the iconography, they're going to tell you everything you know about all the units that you have on your board. Additionally, once you've learned the basic game, you're going to be able to get these variations, these guild variations. These are special kind of rule-breaking people that are going to, you're going to get one, you're going to give one to an opponent, and then they're going to have some ways to sort of beef up or change the rules of the game specifically for them. And then what else is cool is you have tales. When you win even more than at the start of the game, each player is going to be able to have a tale, and these tales are little stories, games within the game, that are going to map up to give some special weird things in the world that make it less generic and more customized. And you'll see a lot of these really nice, really well-made units for that. So that is it. That's what comes in the box. Now I'm going to show you a game overview, not an example of play per se, but just to kind of go over the specific kind of ideas of things you can do in the game and decide if it's right for you. Okay, so I've set up for this 2-player game, and everyone has their components laid out. Everyone's great. Before we start, a couple things. The object of the game is to win. How do you win? Well, you win by scoring the most points at the end of the game. And scoring the most points is a variety of different measures. You can see here that how many units you have on the board, how much control each different area is kind of a control piece, and so you're going to earn points for controlling different areas of the game. You're going to have like again, units out here, points for that. You're going to get points for money. You're going to earn money. There's ways to get money. Lots and lots of ways for it to happen. But to begin, every player, the start player in this case, is going to place either a city and a nomad and a ship. That's what everybody starts with. This is your typical Civilization games thing. So say I put my city, let's put it here. Start with. Okay, yellow's going to decide, do I want to put a city out, a ship out, or a nomad out? I'll put my city here. Okay, and then taking turns, like I'm going to put my boat here, I'm going to put my nomad here, I'm going to put my nomad here. And the ship, I'm going to put, the way I set this one up, and again, the map is set up uniquely each time. I'm going to put that here. Yeah, here. So what's going to happen is, and I didn't show this, but each player actually participates in the creation of the map. You lay out the tiles, the blue tiles first. Everyone kind of takes turns laying it out. Then everyone takes turns laying out the plains tiles. Then, so at first you're just going to throw caution to the wind and set it up. That's just what you're going to do. We're just have some fun here. Let's make some random map generations, save the seed. But then after that, once you know the game, you're going to be able to kind of go strategize a little bit, thinking about where you're going to place your starting units, and it'll get more cerebral at that point. But at first, just throw it to the wind and create a cool looking map, like here. Okay, then when you're done, you're going to take the actual cards that match the units you have in play, and the others get set aside, and the units you have in play here are ready to roll. And same thing here, like you're going to start with the same one, and the others go off. So there we go, we're ready to get rolling. Now what happens is everyone's going to simultaneously choose a card to play at the same time. That's what simultaneous means, right? So I'm going to say, I'm just going to randomly do this. Let's random map generation, random brain. I'm not doing this to show how awesome to play. I'm playing it to show what you're doing. All right, we've got the city, and we've got the nomads. The city, when it's your turn, for every city, you get to activate all the units of that type. Now, right now I have one city, but eventually I'm going to have, 6, 7, 8 cities. And at that point, you might want to, they recommend turning it down, and, so that you can keep track of which ones you've activated and which ones you have not. So what can you do? Well, this card is going to tell you everything you need to know. You can basically for free put a nomad somewhere next to your city. In other words, sort of like spawning a settler for free in Civilization or some of the other games of that type. You can upgrade any of the nomads next to your city for a cost of coin, but you don't have any coin yet. Or you can generate resources based on the terrain type. Now I placed my terrain for red on the plains. That gives me 2. I could have placed it on the forest for get 3. But let's say I do that. Well, I have 2 coins now. That's great. Coins are great for in-game points, but also if I need to upgrade to better units, I have the cash to do so now. And that's it. That's how it starts. Now here we have the nomad, and we'll see here that we've got different things we can do. Nomads they can't go up cliffs, and that's one of the interesting things. Anything that's more than 1 level higher is a cliff. So right now, these plains and the mountain areas, they're 2 levels high. That's a cliff. So nomads can't go up cliffs. They just don't have it. They don't have it in them. They don't have the right cliff notes. However, the plains can go into the forest. That's only 1 high, but that's not what we're going to do. Also, you can generate resources, and this is really where the nomads come in handy, as do the mountaineers. Wherever you're at, you can just gain resources for where you're on, or you can always pay resources to make a nomad into a city. You can do a lot of city building, or a temple. A temple lets you convert. It's the one kind of attack-ish kind of mentality thing in the base version of the game, where you can convert any units nearby into your units for it costs, but you can do it. Or you can make a boat, because that's what it's about. So in this case, I can't make a boat because I'm not on a plains. Again, all of these, once you understand what's going on here, everything that you need to know is captured in these cards, which I like, not to give it away. So yeah, so let's say we generate a resource. Well, congratulations, we're in a forest. We get wood. Wouldn't you know it? And that's it. That's the end of the turn. Now, at the end of the turn, you're going to go, is anybody in decline? Is anybody, and by that I mean, let me explain decline. When you have, well, actually first let me explain what happens when you exhaust all your cards. If you use up all the cards and you have to, then at that point you get all your cards back at the end of a given round where everyone's taking a turn. When that happens, the first player turn flips over to someone else, and then you get all your cards back. So you're kind of having to go use a timing situation here, like mountains, and then maybe you'll want to move your nomads, and maybe you want to do, yeah, all that stuff. If you ever place all of your units of one type on the board, if I place all 5 of my boats, then immediately everyone goes into decline. You get to take that particular token. For example, if my boat's here, I would get this token. I get 25 points at the end of the game. This is sweet. Yet another way to make tokens. And we move up. What does that mean? Everyone has to place one of their cards into the decline, even the person that did it. And what does that mean? Well, that's out of play until you buy it back. So if you don't have a lot of money, you're going to have some of your units dormant for a little while until you go, you know what, I need that card back. Unless you don't really need them, in which case you can be like, you know what, you can keep that card, because that just means that I get to cycle through faster with the cards I do care about. So there's a strategy there that's very interesting. You pay the cost of however you far along. So 5 coins to get my card back. If someone gets a second bonus, 10, because this is the game timer. When these are exhausted, you can play to 4, you can play to 5 or 6, you choose at the start of the game. Once you get all these exhausted, it gets really costly to buy a card back. Definitely, it's sort of a strategy in a strategy. And again, so we can talk about things that you can do. For example, the roads are. Yeah, let's say that we've gone advanced and we've made some cities and we've had some fun. Maybe someone came and did this and messed around and. You got your merchants, you got all this stuff. As you make a new type, and I should explain it. Once you upgrade, say I upgraded this nomad up to a merchant, I then grab the merchant card, and now that merchant card is in my hand, and I'm able to use that to start doing things with all of the merchants. And I place 4 of those, 5, well, place 6 of those out. Guess what? I've earned another accolade. So, as you're going on, as you're building, your boats are doing stuff. You can turn boats into people for money. You can turn nomads into boats for money. You can do all these things. Scoring wise, boats are interesting because you have at your disposal, oh yeah, I grabbed the boat. Here's the boat. Here's the boat. Where's the boat? There's the boat. Boats have an interesting scoring mechanism where you're going to earn money for every city connected to the water that they're on. Notice this big body of water. Well, if there's cities around there, I'm going to get 3, 6, 9 for every boat, even if it's a city that I don't own. That's pretty powerful, so you'll be wanting to note that. Less powerful in these areas, of course, because it's smaller and there's only one city, but possible if you needed to. But that's one way to get money. Merchants also have a way to get money. And they're going to give you money based on cities that are around them, which is kind of cool. Or they're the one unit that can go in and actually coexist with a city. That's pretty cool. And then you've got your mountaineers. Mountaineers are cool because they let you. They're way cooler than a nomad. A nomad moves one space. That is literally like your Civilization, like video game kind of thing, where they're just plugging along really slowly. These are more powerful. They can move 1 to 3. They can move up cliffs. They can do all kinds of stuff, and they too generate resources and create cities. And so all these things are playing a part. And you're going to go and you're going to play turn after turn of this until you've reached a point where someone's exhausted all of their units onto the board, or the group of you together have exhausted enough units on the board that these rewards are taken. And at that point, we go to the end game. And the end game gets very interesting because you're going to, while you have your basic, hey, I've got 3 boats out there. Well, that's 15 points. Huzzah, good for me. I've got 2 of these, so that's, say 30 points. But the real cool part, and the part that takes a little bit of time, so, nestle in, is the area control and controlling each section. Because based on who controls a given area, and all of these can be areas. Every single type, grouping of a type can be an area. And so you're going through and you are taking stock of who has the control. If nobody has control, bummer. If they do, then they're going to get points, and the terrain determines kind of how powerful. If you own a lot of the mountains, you're going to get a lot of points, more so than if you just simply own plains. But that's really the essence of the game, and that is the base game. What gets more interesting is, again, once you start adding these variants, you're going to get special abilities. Again, some of these are pretty basic. If you're first in economy, well, bonus points. Obviously, you're going to want to gear towards that during the course of play. You're going to get extra value out of your planes, etc., etc. And then if you want to get super crazy, and this is where I really kind of like it once you get going, is these, just look at that. Just look at these rules for all these different pieces and what they do. And they're all described, and they're all crazy, and they're all kind of just seismic events that occur during the course of play, most of them, that really just kind of spice it up and give you a good a good amount of variety beyond just the basics. So that's it. That's Rise and Fall. Now let's get into my final thoughts. Okay, final thoughts on Rise and Fall. And what I think of it. As always, we go into the cons first, and then we do the pros, followed by my final thoughts. The cons in this game, I would say minimally, just this is more of a caveat than a con. An expectation setter. This is not your typical conventional 4X style game where you explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. In general, you do have those elements, but they're contrived in a different way. For example, the option to explore, and you kind of already know the map. There's some variations you could take to not to explore it once, have some hidden information. But definitely, it's an implicit coercing force to expand by nature of the scoring, and so you have that as a different motivation. Exploiting is a matter of sort of resources and location. Extermination combat is tepid at best in the base game. Don't buy this with the idea that you're going to put Romans against Gauls or Celtics and have big fights and battles. That's not what it is. The take that is surprisingly minimal for the base game. It's there. It's present in one of the buildings and a force to be not ignored, but this is not your civilization, military build-up units kind of situation. And it does, as you expand into the additional content, the guilds and the tales, you will find that it opens up a bit more with some of that interaction and take that abilities and tale stuff. But it's never this baseline force that you're going to go out and have your conventional 4X experience. The game starts with kind of this sort of friendly whimper and then curves steeply into a large bang. That may be less of a con than just an observation that you start off with very few units, and that's okay. Then over time you cascade until you have a much larger group of units to manipulate each time that you play your card. The first few turns might feel like a little bit sluggish maybe at times, where the last turn feels like you're speedier and almost tons of units and overwhelmed. And yet the thing is, it's really important how those first units are placed or manipulated, as in addition to how it goes when you have tons of units on the map. So you can't sleep on that. Not a con, almost a strategy point. The unit abilities, their cards, I think it's a great idea to have the cards, but they do tend to overwhelm people who were looking at it the first time, going like, this 6 things. And again, they're icons, and so you can't just go, for those who are more literal reading minded, you do have to kind of learn the language, learn the visual language with these iconographic charts, because there are a few nuanced differences in costs and conversions. Like, for me to turn into a ship, this unit must spend this resources, but to turn into a ship, if you're that unit, it's this resource. And so it's almost a miniature sort of a coin game, GMT's coin series, as far as like what they do. Again, I mean, it's just something that to keep in mind as you're trying to teach this game to others. Something that generally is a benefit, also has a little bit of a trade-off for certain mindsets. The second biggest thing is the player elimination, which if you just hate the idea of player elimination as a general principle, and you can't stand even seeing it, you don't even want to try to have a game where it could possibly maybe happen, then skip this, because this is something that's come up where people they find disdain to the idea that someone could be eliminated and then have to sit and watch the rest of the game go by. This is probably the most preparable and rare player elimination scenario that you're going to run into. It's not bang the dice game. It's not other games. It's but it's possible. It's out there as a possibility if you just either don't play well or don't understand how to play, at least at a baseline level where you don't get into that situation. Then you want to avoid it. If you just on principle don't like player elimination, this isn't for you. It's just but if you're like, I don't like it, but if it's that rare, I don't mind it, which is kind of mindset. It's possible that in your first game that you'll run into that, but if you have any extensive exposure to it at all, it will give you the tools to avoid it. And so that's it. Now, so the biggest issue I had for this experience with Rise and Fall isn't about the game itself. It's about the Kickstarter / Gamefound debacle that has that really messed with a lot of people, including myself. Small amount of it take my lumps for not babysitting the Kickstarter better once I realized how incapable the Ludically staff were and how arrogant they were in their incapability. The basic issue is fill it out. Took the money. Was gonna added the expansion pack for the solo. Added the digital version. Yay, all is well. Month after month, some updates in French and English. Blah blah blah. Look at these miniatures, whatever. And then they screwed up, by their own admission, the exporting of game information from Kickstarter to Gamefound. That's something that anybody with half an ounce of common sense would say, we got to message this to people to make sure that they don't, forget to double add their stuff. But there was a very small, really weird kind of vague reference in one of the 30 plus reminders that might have maybe mentioned it a bit, but in general, some people caught it because they went in and took a look. I should have double checked. I'd gotten spoiled not having to babysit a rotten Kickstarter, and so I didn't do my due diligence, and so now I'm going to watch with a hawk for those. I'm going to back definitely not Ludically again. I've already been burned once by a game by Christian Bollinger done by a different group who made A Dog's Life, which was a game that was supposed to be a nice family game that he made, but they then took the money and ran. That was outright theft, and there was never anything, silence from the designer and silence from the guy who took the money. But in this case, it isn't so much that as it's just not a well-represented, well-communicated, and frankly, rude response, because a lot of people ran into the same issues where they got less than they thought they paid for. It turns out they didn't get charged the difference, and so Ludically's response was, sucks to be you, we'll finish the fulfillment, and we'll see if there's anything we can do, but otherwise we don't care. Wouldn't communicate, wouldn't answer. They're not even fixing damaged boxes or anything like that. They've just basically gone, we got your money, we shipped your product, whatever, you don't matter. And it's better than it's better than theft. I'll give it that. But I would encourage people like myself to be very wary when you back another project from Ludically, knowing that in the end, if there's any issues, they're not going to help you. So anyway, let's get that. Again, that's a rant specific to the Kickstarter. Those of you who get the retail version are not going to experience this at all, so you can look. Let's get back to the focus on the game. Anyway, that's aside. Now we'll get into the pros of the game itself beyond the experience, because you can enjoy someone's works and someone's art and someone's game and still not think that they did a real good job as a person in dealing with stuff. So we're going to talk about the game again. Let's go over the pros. Components. The game components are very high quality, which for the price point that I paid for it matches what I would expect, because this was 150, 60 bucks. I forget, since what I paid for on Kickstarter is different than what Gamefound because of their screw up. But but the component, the pieces themselves are extremely just meaty and chunky, nice high quality shine. You can tell everything apart very easily in this particular version. I hope the retail version also has similar high quality components as well. The cards you have for each unit are big. You can see them clear as day. You don't have to worry about squinting to figure it out. No magnifying glass required. And they're sturdy, and they make for everything you need to know in front of you instead of asking for a manual. So, instead of having to go into the manual and look it up, you've got these cheat sheets. I listed it as a con because it did get to be overwhelming, but on the other hand, it was a great idea. So, so that's great. Points for that. The extra pieces for the legends and the tails, or sorry, the guilds and the tails are just really well done. They're carved nicely. They're unique shapes. They're not like this square piece is a dragon. This square piece is a jalopy. I don't know. So really impressive work on that. Very good quality. The game board construction itself, where you're constructing that depth map, is phenomenal. It's innovative, and it's an approach that I think should be normalized across the board for war games in general, because everything, dudes on a map, whatever, should consider this approach. It's not that it's an astounding idea or that it comes with these magically different pieces than we've ever seen before, but seeing it take shape and the table presence and the visceral satisfaction that you have when you're constructing this unique map for your next play, second to none. It is great. It's such it's not revolutionary. It's just sensible, and it works. You're leveraging this depth as you're building it up, and and you don't, I mean, it's just, yeah, before your eyes you're just building this construction that comes to life, and you've got your heights for cliffs. That's brilliant. So if it's more than one height difference, well, you got a cliff, and then they made a gameplay element out of that. The terrain adjacency, it smoothly tells you the movement rules better than any tables and charts of war games could. You don't have to imagine a cliff. It's right there. You can see the cliff in 3D before your eyes. The tiles are also gritty enough. They're not so smooth that they're going to shift around as much. They shift it a little, but they don't slide around, which is particularly helpful, that they're larger pieces and not single hex. Because if you tried to build these maps with single hexes, any shift, someone coughs too hard and they're going to fly out. But because they're larger sets and groupings of tiles, it works really well. And it really is. You can have the random maps every time. So I love the crescendo of the build-up. I mentioned that you start off a little bit quiet and then you kind of explode. I love that crescendo of build-up in the game. It is really important how you start. It doesn't seem so, but then the significance of it becomes manifest later on as you're strategizing and jockeying for position. It starts real confined, and then there's these explosions of capability. Sort of like, reminds me of kind of terraforming Mars, where you start off and then you just crescendo. The scoring is very non-trivial. This is not something you're gonna go, okay, you get 5 points for this, 6 points for that, 8 points for that, 13 to 11, I win. No, there's a geographical puzzle within a puzzle going on here. You have your money aspects during the game, and that's important. But maneuvering and quiet contention are really, really important as well, because you're playing this game. Every hex is kind of part of a scoring battleground, and there are not remote, uninteresting parts of the map, unless as a group y'all decide differently. But in general, you're working to make all of that map, as much of it be like winnable, to get those final scoring points. And that's a really brilliant approach, so that you don't have just these couple hotspots in the middle. No, you got ways to go based on the terrain and how it scores, to be able to go find the places that you want to have your presence there to have the best scoring. And you won't know like who's ahead, and as it goes. So I love the other thing. I love the layering on of the interesting inputs into this game. You start off with the base game, and the base game with a cool map playing on, you could play that a lot and still feel good about it. But then they go on and go, hey, we've got these guild cards. This custom crafts you to a special way, and then suddenly you've got your own uniquenesses. And then they add these tales, these game-wide effects and characters that are introduced to present even wilder situations. And so the flow of this is tremendous. As a game, it is, it's quite unique to play. And while not, I just did a review of SAS Rogue Regiment, which is just astounding cinematic. This is a quieter kind of fun, but it's also a heck of an immersive experience when you've got this wonderful picture of a map grown just for you guys, and you're playing it, and especially at 3 or 4 player counts. So in a lot of ways, it takes. Yeah, let's just go. My final thoughts on Rise and Fall from Christoph Bollinger. This is a game that feels like you're playing sort of the first 20 turns in Civ over and over. And if you like that idea, that initial just, I've got a fresh new map and I'm going to build out, I'm going to grow, and I'm not going to get to F-15s, I'm not going to have a tech tree, this doesn't have one, but it's going to grow, and you just like that experience and that style, and it's just fresh and new. This is for you. It's for me. It's for you. I think the closest thing I've ever seen to it was like Barony. I think Barony was one of the games in the past from Marc Andre, who did Splendor, who did a good job with that kind of like deterministic sort of combat stuff. There are others, but that's the one I remember. This doesn't have a tech tree. Like I said, this isn't lengthy hours of advance and improve and expand and technology might and other. The combat itself is extremely limited. Keep that in mind. But it takes that first 20 or so turns of the Civ experience and extrapolates subtly these interactive fledgling growth points in the world that make it really, really interesting. Again, I've said it probably 3 times already, but the terrain approach should set a standard for how all random maps should be considered to be made, because it's such a wonderful. It removes the exhausting hex by hex construction of, say, there's Memoir 44 or something, dungeon whatever, but it does that. It makes an easier way to set up a really cool map without a hard-coded set of maps having to be set for you. The street appeal of this board game alone is almost worth the price of admission. It's so cool. the growth of the complexity of the game, smoothly drawing the players in with more and more opportunity to add interactions beyond the baseline 6 units is great. Components, the board, the map, the ease of play, the intricate scoring that pushes players to get involved off the sidelines of the corner into their starting world, and playing the full game across all its landscape really sets this apart in a lot of ways. You don't want a turtle in this game. It's just not gonna help you. This is an 8 of 10 game easily, with a 3 of 10 support from the Kickstarter and the publisher. It shackled my enthusiasm, unfortunately. I do hope that those who did manage to get the solo and co-op find it amazing. I find it's sort of ironic that as a victim of the publisher's own version of player elimination, I as a backer was eliminated from being able to test that part of the game. So yeah, that's the kind of player elimination I don't like. But in general, again, for those who are getting it from retail or someone get a copy from somewhere, well worth looking into. I'm very, very impressed with this. As someone who's bought, again, like all the Dungeon Twisters, Earth Reborn, Archipelago, those are the big ones that come to mind. I really enjoyed all those. I'd love to see an Earth Reborn, but yeah, this is along those lines of a fun, interesting, out of the box, experience that I think you may be worth looking at if you're in any way compelled by the idea of this at all. So yeah, that's all I got. Thanks again. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.